1. India lauded for Red Line campaign on antibiotics. GS Paper 2, Issues related to health and human resources. Why is it in news recently? India's idea of putting red line on antibiotic packages to curb their over-the-counter sale is now being cited as a model that can be used globally to counter the rising threat of superbugs. In its final report on tackling drug-resistant infection released on May 19, the Global Review on Antimicrobial Resistance says India has led the way so far with its idea of a red line campaign for antibiotics packaging should be considered as a starting point. It recommends that the labeling and symbols used can be improved if needed and then expanded globally. What is Medicines with the Red Line campaign? It has several key messages: learn how to identify prescription drugs, curb self-medication, and become more aware of the dangers of misusing antibiotics. The campaign was named so as it was mandated that all prescription-only drugs should be marked with a vertical red line on the pack. The packs with red lines should be consumed only on doctor's advice and the patient's need to full course as prescribed by the doctor. The campaign was launched by the Union Ministry of Health and Family Welfare in February 2016. The launch of the campaign became inevitable due to growing misuse of antibiotics across the country. As per a report published in the Lancet journal in August 2014, India consumed 13 billion units of antibiotics in 2010, the highest in the world. Between 2005 and 2009, consumption shot up by 40%. The objectives of the campaign are: to face the twin challenge of tackling overconsumption of antibiotics breeding drug-resistant bacteria, while ensuring that the poor and vulnerable have easy access. To raise awareness regarding completion of dosage of antibiotics, to stop the infections from becoming antibiotic resistant. To crack down on companies producing irrational fixed dosage combination drugs. To check the collusion of chemists and companies to stall the OTC sale of drugs. The significance of the campaign can be seen as follows. It will help in unregulated use of such drugs, which may also help to check increasing antimicrobial resistance. It will help in cautioning the buyer against unprescribed usage of drugs which may lead to dangerous side effects. This will prompt the chemists to sell such medicines only after seeing a valid prescription, which will also prevent drug abuse. The government will be able to regulate drug companies discharging antimicrobial waste into the environment and regulate the use of antibiotics in animal feed to combat antibiotic resistance. 2. 40 million Indians at risk from rising sea levels, UN report. GS Paper 3, Impacts of Climate Change. Why is it in news recently? Nearly 40 million Indians will be at risk from rising sea levels by 2050. According to a UN environment report, with people in Mumbai and Kolkata having the maximum exposure to coastal flooding in future due to rapid urbanization and economic growth. Regional assessments said the worst impacts of climate change are projected to occur in the Pacific and southern Southeast Asia. It said focusing on the population at risk from sea level rise by 2050, 7 of the 10 most vulnerable countries worldwide are in the Asia-Pacific region. Which countries will be affected by sea level raising? India tops the chart with nearly 40 million people in the country projected to be at risk from rising sea levels, followed by more than 25 million in Bangladesh, over 20 million in China and nearly 15 million in the Philippines. Reasons behind rising sea levels. It said changes in settlement patterns, urbanization and socio-economic status in Asia have influenced observed trends in vulnerability and exposure to climate extremes. The report said in many coastal areas, growing urban settlements have also affected the ability of natural coastal systems to respond effectively to extreme climate events, rendering them more vulnerable. Concerns of the report. Many of these cities are already exposed to coastal flooding, but have limited capacity to adapt due to their fixed location. The worst impacts of climate change are projected to occur in the Pacific and South and Southeast Asia. The report said livelihoods can be impacted negatively by natural disasters, economic crises and climate change. On coastal areas highly exposed to cyclones and typhoons, the poor tend to be more exposed to natural disasters because they live on land open to hazards.